إذا الأمجاد قد عظمت فللأمجاد بانيها ومن يسعى إلى العليا سيدركها بما فيها ويبني مجده جذلا فروح الفذ يعليها ليصبح همة تروي عن العليا مغانيها.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another exciting episode of the ITV Math Show with me, your host and presenter, Mohammed Kota. We're shooting here in Johannesburg, and for all our international viewers, we have started this program in Ramadan already, and we're now continuing now post-Ramadan with preparation for grade 11 and 12 pure mathematics. Now remember this, guys, this is for pure maths only, not for math literacy. We are starting. Today's topic that we will be discussing is trigonometry, and we will be doing reduction, special angles. Now, in our previous episode, in one of our live episodes, what we did is that we introduced the audience to reduction. But we didn't do a full-scale program dealing with the special angles. So guys, I hope by now you have been, you are prepared for the session. Get your pens, get your papers, get your scientific calculators ready, and let's get started with the show. Now, we're starting with reduction, special angles, 30 degrees. Now remember, reduction deals with 30-degree angles, 45-degree angles, and 60-degree angles. These are called our special angles. Now, why do we have 30, 45, and 60-degree angles? So that we can simplify an angle like this, sine 225, without the use of a calculator. Now, we are going to cheat a little, right? This is just between you and I. What we're going to be doing now is that, I know, we are doing crisis control. We are doing damage control now towards the end of the year. Because many of you have been failing this section for probably about 2 years now. So we're going to be using our calculator. But we're going to be leaving our answers in third form. There is no way that your teachers will be able to pick up that you actually use the calculator if you do not give your answer with decimals. So make sure that you will give your answer in third form, and no decimals, guys, no decimals. The minute you start converting a fraction to a decimal, you get 0,1, 0,5, 0,86, whatever you get. They know you use the calculator, they're going to mark it wrong. So you're going to have to leave your answer in third form. Okay, now we take an example. I'm going to start you off from basic, and we're going to be moving up to the most complex question that you could see in the exam for grade 11 and 12. And you will always get in grade 11. Let's just put a note. Let's make a note here. Let's put notes on the side. Grade 11, you will see maximum of 2 of these questions in the exam. All right? Both. One will be probably about 5 or 6 marks, and the other one will be about 7 marks. So total here, you're looking at 12 marks. Grade 12, you'll only see, you'll get 1 or 2, maximum 2 questions. And also, plus minus 12 marks. Okay, so guys, please, this is an important topic. Remember, under trigonometry, what are you going to be seeing under trigonometry? You're going to be seeing equations, identities, reduction. You're going to get 1 equation in the exam, 1 general solution, 1 quadratic general solution. You're going to be seeing reduction. You're going to be seeing identities. You're going to be seeing your trig graphs. 1 of each of these questions, and that's going to build your total of about 30 marks. Let's get started with reduction. We have now sine 225. Now, we need to get a 30-degree angle, a 45-degree angle, or a 60-degree angle in the 225 using our quadrants. Now, that is our Cartesian plane. We all know, all positive, that's quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. Okay, all positive. That means sine in the first quadrant, we all know, sine, cos and tan, positive. Quadrant 2, now we know this is 90 degrees plus. If an angle lies here, it's 90 plus. If an angle lies here, 90 minus. That's your 0. So we're going in a anti-clockwise direction. That's your 180 degree line, that's your 270, and that's your 360. So if an angle lies in this quadrant, it could either be 180 minus or 90 plus. If it lies in your third quadrant, it could be 180 plus or it could be 270 minus. If it lies in this quadrant, in quadrant number 4, it will either be 270 plus or 360 minus. Now many of you get confused which one to use, and that's the purpose of today's show, to show you exactly in which quadrant does the angle lie and how to determine the sign in that quadrant. Whether it's going to be a positive or whether it's going to be a negative. Whether the name is going to stay or whether the name is going to change. Now there are exact rules and we're going to be going through all those rules. Okay, so let's get started. That is your Cartesian plane. We have sine 225. And the first rule that I'm going to put down, right? Rules. When we are dealing with quadrants, here are your quadrant rules. Here are your quadrant rules. If an angle, now what we're going to try and use, we're going to try and use the 180 plus, the 180 minus, or the 360 minus. Meaning that from the Cartesian plane, we're going to be using this line. We're going to avoid using the 90 plus and 90 minus. Why? I will explain to you now. So if an angle lies in the second quadrant, we're not going to say 90 plus. We're going to say 180 minus. If an angle lies in this quadrant, like 225, we're not going to say 270 minus, we're going to say 180 plus. If an angle lies in this quadrant, we're going to say 360 minus, not 270 plus. You might be asking the question, why? I'm going to explain that to you now. So, let's just first put down the rule. The 180 plus 180 minus, quadrant 3 and quadrant 2 and quadrant 4, we're going to use. And why are we going to use it? Here's the answer to that. This is the explanation as to why we're going to be using that. Because the name stays. So sine will remain sine. Cos will remain cos. Tan will remain tan. The 90 plus, the 90 minus, the 270 plus, the 270 minus, we're going to avoid using it. I'm not saying don't ever use it. I'm just going to say avoid using it under all circumstances. Unless it's given in the question and you're forced to use it. So the 90 plus, so the vertical line, picture an electric fence. Picture an electric fence. Don't go near it, don't touch it. Why? You're going to get electrocuted. What's going to happen? You're going to change from living to dead. What's going to happen in trigonometry? The name is going to change. So 90 plus 90 minus, 270 plus 270 minus, the vertical line, let's put it here. The name stays on the horizontal line from your Cartesian plane, 180 plus, 180 minus, or 360 minus, the name stays. Like we said, sine will remain sine, cos will remain cos, tan will remain tan. 90 plus 90 minus, 270 plus 270 minus, we will avoid using it. Why? Because the name changes. The name changes. So what will happen? It will change to its cofunction. They also call it the cofunction rule. It will change to its cofunction, meaning sine will change to cos, sine will change to cos, if you had 90 plus 90 minus, or cos will change to sine. So sine will change to cosine, that's why we call it cofunction. Sine will change to cosine, and cosine will change to sine. So this is your first set of rules, which is called your quadrant rules. Now, to summarize this whole thing, I want you to pay very careful attention. Because what we're going to be doing, we're going to be putting, there are 5 rules. So we're going to say this is rule 1 of 5. So this is rule 1. There's going to be 5 block rules. I'm going to give you a 5 block summary. I'm going to show you how it's done. I need you guys to pay attention very carefully. So just to quickly recap, trigonometry, reduction, special angles, 30, 45, 60-degree angle. We're going to be using the Cartesian plane to reduce that. This is our question. That is our question. I'm going to show you how to reduce it. The first rule, quadrant rules. How do we use our rules? So we got sine 225. That is going to be broken up in. Now 225 is in that quadrant. Are we going to say 270 minus or 180 plus? Let's go to our rule. Am I going to say 270 minus? No, I'm going to avoid. So what am I going to say? 180 plus. Because it lies in this quadrant, 180 plus. So here, sine 180 plus. Now 180 plus which of my special angles will give me 225? The 45-degree angle. Right? Because 180 plus 45 degrees will give me 225 degrees. Okay? Guys, I know you guys have seen this. I know you guys have seen this in school. Right? We're going to be taking a quick ad break. I want to see now, before the ad break, whether you can reduce this. Let's see what does this one become. I'm going to give you two more before we cut for the ad break. So this was example number 1. Example number 2, I'm going to tell you cos 315. And I'm going to tell you sine 315. Right? Let's see whether you can reduce these three during the break. When we get back from the break, I will show you exactly, and we will continue with the show. Enjoy your break, boys and girls. Boys and girls, welcome back to the ITV Math Show. We cut off before the break with trigonometry. We started with the topic on reduction and special angles, and we gave you your first set of rules. And your rule 1 of 5, that's your quadrant rules. This is how you would utilize your quadrant. Please make sure you remember this. Critical, imperative. You don't know this, you're going to fail the section in the exam. So please pay attention. So I left you before the break. We said sine 225. We said sine. What are we going to be using? Are we going to be using the 225? Are we going to use 270 minus or 180 plus? We're using 180 plus. Why? 180 plus we use because the name stays. We want to keep the name. We want to try and keep the name. So this becomes sine. So the name stays. The quadrant now disappears. You cancel the quadrant. 180 plus. Now check. 180 plus is in this quadrant. What do we know about sine in this quadrant? Is it positive or is it negative? We know all positive in quadrant 1. Sine positive in quadrant 2, everything else negative. Quadrant 3, tan positive, everything else negative. Quadrant 4, cos positive, everything else negative. So, what do we know? What do we know about sine in the third quadrant? Only tan is positive. That means cos and sine would be negative. So yes, sine is negative in this quadrant because sine is only positive, all positive in quadrant 1, sine positive in quadrant 2. That means sine in quadrant 3 and 4 is negative. So now this becomes minus sine, and we know 45 degrees. Now because that is a special angle, sine 45, whether you know it, whether you don't know it, whether you are using a table, no matter what method your teacher is using, go to your calculator. Calculator will give you your special angles. So we know sine 45 equals square root 2 over 2. And here we go, minus root 2 over 2. Now, if you are using the table will give you 1 over root 2. Guys, as you all know, grade 11 and 12, 1 over root 2. You might say, but Mr. K, my table gives me 1 over root 2. The calculator gives me root 2 over 2. Is it the same thing? Yes, it is. That's just with the irrational denominator, and that is with a rational denominator. So that or that is exactly the same. They won't mark you down in the final exams. But find out from your teacher. If your teacher wants you to give it as 1 over root 2, just put it as 1 over root 2. But you can still use your calculator to double check your special angle. Let's look at, so if you got that one right before the break, you are already on the right track. Let's look at cos 315. This will be cos. Now we have to use a quadrant. 90, 180, 270 or 360. So now 315 lies now in this quadrant here. That's where 315 lies. Now, 315, are we going to say we need a quadrant and a special angle? We need a quadrant and a special angle. Are we going to say 360 minus a special angle, or are we going to say 270 plus? Let's go back here. Are we going to say 270 plus? No, we're going to avoid. What are we going to say? 360 minus. So this is going to be 360 minus. Now 360 degrees minus which angle? Which of these special angles will give me 315? 45. Very good. Now cos 360. 360, the name stays. So we leave it as cos, quadrant falls away, cos 45. We must check the sign, positive or negative, in that quadrant. So 315 lies in this quadrant here. What do we know about cos in this quadrant? Cos in this quadrant is positive. So it will be positive cos 45. Again, go to your calculator, go to your scientific calculator, type in cos 45. Again, you will get the same answer, root 2 over 2, or 1 over root 2. Okay? Let's look at sine 315. Right? We're going to do a host of examples here. I need you to get used to this because it gets far more complicated. As we develop through the show, as the problems start getting more complicated, you know, grade 11 and 12, you're not going to see it as simple as this. You're going to see it in a complex problem. But you need to know how to do all these independent parts in order to get to your final solution. And remember, it's worth 6 or 8 marks in the exam. So you need to pay attention. So now we have sine 315. That is going to be sine 315 is 360 minus 45. By now we're already getting used to it. So now sine 360, the name stays, quadrant falls away, sine 45. And what do we know? 360 minus is in my fourth quadrant. 360 minus is in my fourth quadrant. What do we know about sine in my fourth quadrant? It's negative. So your answer is negative root 2 over 2. There we go. Those were the solutions for the first 3. Let's now pick up the pace. Let's do another 3 examples. Right? Just so that you know. Then we will move on to rule 2, rule 3, rule 4, rule 5. This summary will summarize the entire 2 years syllabus. That means if you follow our series, if you are watching ITV and you are following the series here, this would summarize the entire 2 years work on the screen. So please pay attention and stay tuned to the show. Okay guys, let's do more examples here. So that was your rule 1 on your quadrants. Okay, let's do another example. Here goes. I tell you sine 150 degrees. Sine 150, we know 150, that's 90, that's 180. That means the angle lies there. So it goes sine. Do I say 90 plus 60? Because 90 plus 60 will give me 150. Or do I say 180 minus 30? Yes, you are right. We say 180 minus 30. Right? So sine 180, the name stays the same. Sine 30. 180 minus is in my second quadrant. What do we know about sine in my second quadrant? It's positive. So that's your answer would be positive. What is sine 30? You can go to your calculator, plug it in. Sine 30 will give you 60 degrees. No, sine 30 is a half. Sine 30 is a half. Okay? Let's do another example. Let's say now they give it to you. They tell you sine 270 minus x. Now there's no angle. The angle is not given. But they're giving you 270 in the question. And they're not giving you an angle. Now we know 270 minus, 270 minus lies in that quadrant there. 270 minus lies in quadrant 3. But the name 270, does the name stay or does the name change? Yes, the name changes. What does it change? Sine changes to cosine. So now we say the quadrant falls away. We are now left with cos x. Sine 270 minus x is cos x. But are we done? No. We need to check the sign in that quadrant, the positive or the negative. So now what do we know about sine in the third quadrant? Only tan is positive. Everything else is negative. So your answer is minus cos x. If you just put cos x, you would get it completely wrong. And you would be losing all your marks. Let's choose another example. I'm going to do one more example. I tell you cos, let's say 210. Now cos 210 would be cos, we're going to be using 210 lies between which two quadrants? The 180 and the 270. So 210 lies between 180 and 270. That means it's also in the third quadrant. So now we're going to say 180 plus. 180 plus how much will give me 210? 30 degrees. So now the quadrant falls away. We're left with cos 30. We've reduced it from 210 to 30 degrees using our quadrant. 180 plus is in my third quadrant. What do I know about cos? You look at the original, not the changed one. You look at the original. What is cos in my third quadrant? Negative. And we know minus cos 30, if you go to your calculator, would be minus square root 3 over 2. And there we go, guys. That is how you reduce your angles. So this is the first rule that we have, the quadrant rule. So I've showed you now how to reduce an angle using a quadrant. What happens when you have negative angles? So I'm going to do all these rules independently, and then we're going to summarize everything on one board, so you've got all the notes with regard to this. Boys and girls, I promise you, with these 5 rules, you don't need any further notes on this topic. Whatever else you got, you can push aside. This is all you need to know in order to get full marks in your examination. So let's now go to rule 2. Right? So rule number 1 was the quadrant rule, and I hope you took them all down. We're now going to go on to rule 2. And rule 2, we're now going to be putting, this is rule 2 of 5, and let's call this the negative angle rule. Okay? I hope you've taken all this down, boys and girls. We're cutting now for an ad break, a 3-minute ad break. No work for you, giving you a little bit of a break. Enjoy the show, watch the ads, have your popcorn and coffee ready, and go through the notes of the first topic, of the first segment of the show. Go through the notes, and I'll see you after the break. I hope you're enjoying the show. Boys and girls, welcome back to the ITV Math Show. We are now busy with trigonometry. We gave you a little bit of a break. There was actually no work that I needed you to do between the 3 minutes that we took the ad break. In fact, what I just wanted you to do is just go through all the notes from the beginning of today's episode. So I hope you are taking down all these notes. And I hope by now you guys have opened up a K-Wave file. Now, obviously, for those of you who have just joined the show, or you don't, you've missed all the episodes. We're already in probably episode number 12 or 13 of the series, and we are moving in sequence. What I'd like you to do is go to itvnetworks.tv. Go to the website www.itvnetworks. I'll just put it up here on the board. itvnetworks.tv. And click on the K-Way icon. That's on the top of your on the page, the K-Way icon. All the previous episodes will all come up, and then you can just double click on any of, and you can then stream any of the previous episodes that have been aired. Okay, thus far. We're now going on to rule 2. Rule 2 of 5, the negative angle rule. Now this is very important. Pay attention. You get 3 types of negative angles. One for the sine, one for the tan, and one for the cos. How does it look? It looks sine of a negative angle like that. Tan of a negative angle. Cos of a negative angle. Now, why do we have a negative angle rule, boys and girls? To remove the brackets. We need to be able to remove the brackets. When you see this in a problem, you need to take out the brackets. And what happens to it? So, sine of I want you to remember this. Sine of a negative angle, when you remove the brackets, becomes minus sine of that angle. You just remove the brackets, take out the brackets, and bring the negative to the front. Tan of a negative angle would be the same, minus tan of that angle without the brackets. Cos of a negative angle is positive cos of that angle. Remember, cos is the only one that changes to positive. Why? You know, a negative angle does not exist in the world of cos. Why? Let's look at our negative angles. If I told you 0 plus, what do we know about cos in the first quadrant? That's a positive angle. 0 plus, cos is positive, all is positive. 0 minus, the negative angle. What do we know about cos in my fourth quadrant? It's positive. Hence, the negative angle does not exist in the world of cos. So hence, cos of a negative angle becomes positive cos x. So sine and tan, you take the negative sign because you can get sine of a negative angle. You can have tan of a negative angle, but you cannot have cos of a negative angle. Cos of a negative angle is always positive. So this was rule number 2. Right. There's no examples here to do. When we are doing the big complex problem, we'll show you how to break it up and how to apply the rules into a given scenario. So I hope you took this down. Rule 2 of 5, the negative angle rule. Okay. We're now going on to the third rule. Right? Watch this. Rule 3 of 5. We're now going on to rule 3 of 5. Rule 3 of 5. And that is the quadrant swap. So the first rule that we did was the quadrant rule, where I taught you which quadrant to use, either the 90 or 270 or the 180 and 360. The second rule that we did just before this was the negative angle. Sine of a negative angle minus sine of the angle. Tan of a negative angle minus tan of the angle. Cos of a negative angle, positive cos of that angle. We now go on to the quadrant swap. Now watch this. This is what it looks like. So if they tell you sine x minus 270 degrees. Okay, now there are many ways in which your teachers will try and explain to you what needs to be done. Now, in all the previous ones, we had it looking like this. We said sine 270 minus x. You always had the quadrant and you had the angle. In this case, you got the angle, now you have the quadrant. So that's it's called the quadrant swap. We are now going to swap the two over. Now I'm going to show you two methods of doing this. I'm going to show you the long way and I'm going to show you the shortcut. Obviously, you're going to be using the shortcut in the exam. Both of them marks will be allocated. Both of them are correct. Okay. So, if we say sine x minus 270, we now swap the two around because we want it. So that becomes sine, use a square bracket, swap the two, minus 270 plus x. Now we don't, this is not algebra guys, we don't take the negative sign outside. We make it a negative angle inside the brackets. So we make a negative angle inside the brackets. So watch what happens now. We're now going to have sine, square brackets, there we go, minus into 270. Now both the signs change. Minus 270 becomes plus 270 in the brackets. Plus x becomes minus x. Okay. What do we know, guys? Here's it. Here's your negative angle now. There is your negative angle. That's your angle. Negative angle. We made it a negative angle. So we swap the two quadrants around. We swap the angle and the quadrant around. And we made it a negative angle. Now we ask ourselves, sine of a negative angle. Now we go back to the previous rule. What do we know about sine of a negative angle? It's minus sine of the angle. There we go. Minus sine. We take that minus, we take it to the front. Sine of a negative angle minus sine of that angle. Now, 270. Does the name stay or does the name change? Right? Remember, 90 and 270, name changes. 180, 360, name stays. So, sine 270, the name will change. So, you've got minus. Sine 270, the name will change to cos x. The name changes. Sine will change to cosine. Cosine will change to sine. So, that becomes minus cos x. 270 minus. 270 minus is in this quadrant here. Is in that quadrant. 270 minus is in quadrant number 3. What do we know about sine? Only tan is positive. So what do we know about sine in this quadrant? Sine is negative. So negative times this negative that you have here, your answer is just cos x, right? Positive cos x, because negative times the negative will give you positive cos x. And there we go. That's how you will reduce. That's, you swap it over, make a negative angle inside the brackets, ask yourself, sine of a negative angle minus sine of the angle. Now reduce it. Sine 270, the name changes to cos x. 270 minus is in your third quadrant. Sine in your third quadrant is negative. Negative times the negative that you have here gives you positive. So your answer there is positive cos x. I hope you've taken this one down. What happens, you might ask, but Mr. K, what happens if you have cos x minus 270? So let's try another example in the quadrant swap. Let's try cos x minus 270 and let's see how that one pans out. So now we have example number 2. So I tell you cos x minus 270. So we apply the same rule. The principle is exactly the same. It might be tweaked along the line, but the principle in the rule stays exactly the same. So let's go back. We're now going to have cos. What did I say? Swap the two around. Minus 270 plus x. Okay, so that becomes cos. I said use the square brackets. Make it a negative angle in the brackets. So minus into minus 270 plus 270 plus x becomes minus x. There we go. Cos of a negative angle. Cos of a negative angle. Now from our negative angle rules, and I'm going to keep on telling you and repeating these phrases so that it's branded on your mind. Cos of a negative angle, what did I tell you? Cos of a negative angle is positive. So here we go. Cos of a negative angle is positive. That negative falls away. Why? Because of our previous rule. We know cos of a negative angle is positive cos of that angle. That was our rule. That was the previous rule. Rule 2 of 5, if you go back, cos of a negative angle, positive cos. The negative just falls away. So there, the negative falls away. We're left now with cos 270 minus x. Now we reduce it. Cos 270, cosine 270, the name will change to sine x. 270 minus is in my third quadrant. 270 minus is in my third quadrant. What do I know about cos? Don't look at the changed one. Look at the original. What do I know about cos in my third quadrant? Only tan is positive. That means cos must be negative. And your answer there would be minus sine x. So here we go, boys and girls. You had rule 1, rule 2, rule 3. We did 2 examples in rule 3. We're going to do rule 4 and 5 before we actually attack, and we take all these rules and we apply it to a big exam type problem. Okay, we're coming to the end of our third segment, almost at the end of the show. Guys, stay tuned to ITV. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. We're taking a 3-minute break. I'll see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the ITV Math Show with me, your host, Mohammed Kota. We're shooting here in Johannesburg and I hope you guys have been enjoying all our series. We are now back with trigonometry. Now, we cut the chit-chat as much as we can so that we can cram in as much content as we can. Now, we are into the last segment of today's show, boys and girls. The last segment, and today's show is going to be focusing on the rules of reduction. So we've done rule number 1, 2, 3. If you've missed it, you'll have to go to itvnetworks.tv within the next day or 2. It should be uploaded on the website. Click on the KY icon and then go through all the rules. But if you have been watching the show from the beginning today, you know we are now on to rule 4 or 5. Just to recap quickly, rule number 1 that we had was the quadrant rule. Number 2 was the negative angle rule. Rule number 3 was the quadrant swap, where we swap the 2 quadrants. We're now on to rule number 4. Remember, we have to complete all 5 rules by today. In our next episode, we're going to be taking all these rules and we're now going to be applying it to all exam type questions. It's going to be strictly, you follow these rules religiously. You follow these rules religiously. Any deviation from these rules, you will get it wrong. So please pay attention and stay focused. So, rule 4-5. Squaring a trig ratio. Now, there's it. Squaring a ratio. Now, sine 270. Sine 270. We know that from our previous rule, 270, the 90 and 270, the name changes. So sine squared 270 will change to cos squared x. That's it. Now, do I need to check? The reason why I give you a rule is, do I need, when you are squaring it, do I need to check whether it's positive or negative? No. Why? Anything squared is always positive. So we don't need to check the quadrant, because anything squared is positive. A negative squared, negative times negative is a positive, and a positive times a positive is a positive. So anything squared will always remain positive. So let's take another example. If I told you cos squared 90 minus x, that would just remain cos squared 90. The name would change from cos to sine squared x. Do I need to check the sign positive or negative? No, it will always be positive. Let's take one more example. I tell you sine squared 180 plus x. Here, the name stays. 180, the name stays. So that will become sine squared x. We know that 180 plus is in this quadrant here, but do I need to check the quadrant? No. Anything squared is always positive. And there we go. We know squaring a trig ratio, the answer will always be positive. Right? Just to show you one. But what if you had minus sine squared 270 minus x? Now it's already negative from the question. Now pay attention. This negative doesn't belong to this. This negative does not belong. I'm showing you all the styles that you could see in your problem. So sine squared 270 minus x will be cos squared x, and it will be positive because of the square. Now the positive times the negative will make this negative. So please be careful. This one and that one is not the same. Sine squared 270 minus x is positive, but there's a negative given in the question. So a positive times a negative will make it negative. So your answer there would be minus cos squared x, not positive cos squared x. Okay? So I hope you're understanding rule 4-5, and I hope you've taken it down by now. Let's now go on to the last one, which is an angle greater than 360 degrees. And you have seen this in the exam. Okay? So we're now going to go on to rule 5 of 5. The final rule, the final frontier, 5 of 5. And that is an angle greater than 360 degrees. Example, if they tell you cos 480 degrees. Now we know, guys, 480 is greater than 360. We know a circle has only got 360 degrees, meaning that the angle starts at 0, goes right through back to 360 degrees, and it goes further than that. We know that you don't get an angle greater than 360 because a circle has only got 360 degrees. So what is the first thing that you do? Is you subtract 360 degrees from the angle that's given, right? To tell you how many more degrees did the angle go. Meaning that this angle made one complete revolution of 360 and went a little bit more. So how much more did it go by? How do we figure that out? How do we find that out? We just subtract 360 from the angle. So cos 480, guys, is exactly the same as saying cos 480 minus 360 is 120 degrees. I subtracted 480 minus 360 to give me 120. Remember, the topic is called reduction. So we're reducing it. We're getting it to a special angle where we can be using our scientific calculators. So cos 120 will be cos, will I say 90 plus? We know 120 lies here. Are we going to say 90 plus, or are we going to say 180 minus? Yes, according to our previous rule, we said we're going to be using 180 minus. Now 180 minus how much? Which special angle? 180 minus the 30, the 40, 45 or the 60 degree angle will give me 120. So this would be cos 180 minus 60. Now, because 180 minus 60 will give me 120 degrees. Now, the quadrant falls away. The name stays. Cos 60, the quadrant falls away. 180 minus is in my second quadrant. What do I know about cos in my second quadrant? it's negative. So we left with minus cos 60, which is minus. Now you can use your calculator. Remember, you can only use your calculator after you've done the reduction. Otherwise, they'll mark it wrong. Cos 60 is a half. And that is your answer, minus half. So we've reduced it from 480 degrees to negative a half. Right? So cos 480 is cos 120. Why? Because the rule is for an angle greater than 360, you subtract 360 degrees. You subtract 360 degrees from the given angle. So here goes, cos 480 will become cos 480 minus 360, which will now become cos 120. 120 is 180 minus 60. Quadrant falls away. The name stays because we're using 180 degrees. We're left with cos 60. 180 minus is in my second quadrant. Cos in my second quadrant is negative. Your answer is minus a half. Right, guys, we've come to the end of all the rules. We've come to the end of all the rules. I'm going to put up one question. Right? If we have enough time before the end of the show, we'll complete it. I'm going to show you an exam style question. But stay tuned to our next episode, guys. And if you don't know the times, go on to itvnetworks.tv, check all our times, and you will be able to organize yourself and make sure, if you've got a PVR, make sure that you are recording all our shows. Right. One of the problems that's given here, here's an exam type question. The question in the exam simply states, simplify, and 6 marks is allocated for this question. Here's an example, exam type question where we need to apply all our rules. Okay, so they tell you sine 180 minus theta cos 360 minus theta tan 360 tan squared 360 plus theta over sine theta minus 180 degrees. Now it's worth 6 marks. We need to simplify it. We are coming to the end of today's show, but just quickly before we wrap up, I'd like you to identify things. Sine 180 minus theta, rule 1 will apply. From our rules, rule 1 will apply. Cos 360 minus theta, rule 1 will apply. Tan squared 360 plus theta, rule 4 will apply. So you can see, and sine theta minus 180, rule 3 will apply. So here you can see, just by the style of the question, that it incorporates not all of our 5 block rules or 5 summary. It only utilizes 3 or 4. So try this one out, guys. We are coming to the end of the show. Take this one down, and we will then give you the memo in the next show. Okay, so take this question down, see whether you can apply it. It's going to take much more. We don't have much time in today's show. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I hope you have today's notes, the summary of the 5 rules for the reduction, your special angles, 30, 45, and 60 degree angles. I hope you guys are enjoying our series of shows. And I want you to try this one out. Take this problem, try it out. In our next show, we'll give you the memorandum, and we're going to be doing, the next show is just going to be focused on exam style questions. Boys and girls, I hope you guys are enjoying mathematics. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. And I wish you all the best from us here at ITV. We wish you all the best for the examinations. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with you, guide you, open your mind, open your hearts to mathematics. And we hope to get the best results out of you. Okay, if you guys would like to put any comments, put your comments or type your comments, blog your comments on itvnetworks.tv or kwaymath@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. From us here at ITV and from myself, Mohammed Kota, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can't wait to see you in the next show.
الأمجاد قد عظمت فللأمجاد بانيها ومن يسعى إلى العليا سيدركها بما فيها ويبني مجده جدلا فروح الفذ يعليها ليصبح همة تروي عن العليا